Hallo Freunde! In this video, I want to help those of you who are traveling to a German-speaking country to prioritize the things that you study in preparation for your trip. So if you are planning a trip, you've probably ordered your passport and you've got your plane ticket, and there are a few months in between where you're not really sure what to do to prepare. Well, this video is going to help you strategize. When I'm thinking about travel, I want to think about what my goals are when I'm there. So if you're visiting a foreign country, I think it's safe to say you have two goals. One, getting along with people, and two, getting help if you need it. These two things are very important for any traveler. When you're going somewhere, you want to be able to interact with local people. You'll have a richer experience that way. You'll get to know someone maybe you'll make a friend. You'll have insider information. Locals can give you tips on where to go, what the good places are to eat, or maybe there's some hidden gem that you wouldn't hear about in the tour guides, and they can give you that kind of information. Plus, you'll get to know like the real place better rather than just seeing all the sightseeing places and getting to know the touristy, official side, the side they want to present. You can actually get to know the real place, which is really nice. So getting along with people is really important, but also avoiding trouble. And those kind of go hand in hand, but there are other kinds of trouble you could get into abroad other than just offending someone. You could also have an accident or a health emergency while you're abroad. And you want to be able to deal with those situations if they come up. Hopefully they won't, and you'll never need those kinds of skills, but if they do happen, you want to be prepared. So keeping this in mind, we'll take the first objective first. So if you're getting along with people, you're going to be making an effort to speak their language. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to speak German well or even often, but it means that you should at least try. If people see that you're trying to speak their language, a lot of them may actually know English and may want to practice their English with you. So they may see it as this great opportunity where they can speak English to you and do you a service in the meantime by helping you to navigate or getting to know you. So if you just make the effort, that makes all the difference. And it's going to help you to not be seen as a rude tourist who goes into a different country, arrogant and thinking that they don't even have to study the language at all. You don't want to be perceived that way, and it will help you a lot if you just learn some basic German phrases, greetings, and polite things like please and thank you, and that way you can have a little bit of a rapport from the get-go. Also, you want to learn how to be polite just in general. So things like using the appropriate form of address. If you're saying you to someone, there's two different yous in German. So one's for formal, one's for informal. If you use the informal one, someone might get offended. You might even get yelled at. I don't think it would be super common if you're interacting with people who deal with tourists a lot, but there's a possibility. So you want to be able to know the norms of the language. You want to know what's polite, and you want to know the norms of the culture too. So you want to know what is normal for, say, if you go into a bathhouse. You want to know how much nakedness is appropriate. That is a really important thing to know. As an American, you will probably be underestimating the degree of nakedness that you would see in one of these public baths. And that's okay, but you should know that people there are going to be naked, and you shouldn't be surprised. You shouldn't be gawking at them. It's just a normal thing. It's the human body. Who cares? But if you don't know that, you're going to be at a disadvantage when your face is all shocked when you go in there. So knowing about norms is really important. You should also know enough of the language to talk a little bit about yourself and to ask other people about themselves. So if you go out and you're in a bar and you're sharing a table with some nice couple that you just met, you want to be able to tell a little bit about yourself, and you want to be able to ask questions where they're from and things like that, so that you can have a little personal exchange. You can make a connection on a more personal level, and then you have a better time. You make friends. All right. So those include both language things and culture things you should know. So one other language thing I want to add to that is health terms. So health terms if you have a condition you're diabetic, or if you have some particular medication that you need, you want to know how to say those things in German, because there's a chance that you'll, say, lose your medication, or you'll have some emergency situation where you have to fill out a form and say okay, what existing conditions do you have, and you want to be able to list that and know what that is so that you can communicate properly and get the proper health care. Health insurance while you travel is, of course, a necessity as well. But that and knowing how to read signs, like emergency signs, things like if you see Polizei, you know that's the police. Like that one is a little bit easier to grasp. But things like Notaufnahme, the emergency care, emergency reception, where you would go in an emergency, that's the kind of thing that you really want to know too. So you want to be able to read those signs so that you can navigate in a crisis, because the last thing you want to do is be in a foreign country where you know none of the language and you're just completely unprepared and have this crisis. All right, so the key to all of this, having a good time when you travel, is being adaptable. And there are things you can do to prepare to help you be more adaptable later. For example, getting to know some of the language, that's obviously a big help. But also things like getting to know the geography a little bit, like if you are going to a specific town, you're going to Vienna, say. Look at the map of the town. See what it's shaped like. See how in the center of town it's kind of a circle, and you maybe know one or two of the major street names. If you're staying in a hotel or wherever you're staying, know the bus lines or the tram lines or whatever public transit goes near there. Know what number it is. That way, if you're ever out and about and you're like, oh gosh, I'm a little bit lost, I'm not quite sure where to go, you can find the bus number, and if you recognize it, you can just go, oh, okay, that's how I get back home to my hotel. All right, so just knowing enough that you can improvise a little bit is a really great tip for adaptability. And being open to new experiences is really, really key when you're traveling, because if you're not open to those new experiences, you might get stuck in this mindset of like, well, this is what I was going to do. This is what my plan was. And then if things go wrong, you know, maybe there's construction at the museum you were going to go visit and it's not open today, or maybe you read the time wrong, or maybe it was abbreviated and it was Sunday, you thought it was Saturday or something like that. Those little unexpected things can really throw off your trip in a big way if you're not prepared to be adaptable and open and just kind of go with the flow. So if you're able to do that, then you're going to have a much better time, and you won't waste your time in a foreign country, this amazing place that you've never been to before. You want to get the most out of it. You won't waste it by just being mad and upset or like waffling back and forth between different choices of what you have to do. Okay, so lastly, if you're going to be adaptable, a great way to practice this with the German language is by taking that little bit you know, whatever it is at this point. You know, I would recommend learning greetings for sure. If you're traveling to a German-speaking area, you should learn how to be polite. So things like bitte, bitte schön, danke, like please and thank you. Everybody should know those kinds of things if they're traveling, right? How to read some signs and the health information. I would add questions, like basic questions like, wie geht's? How's it going? Or maybe simple things like, wie heißt du? What's your name? Or woher kommst du? Where are you from? And of course you want to be careful because you might want to use woher kommen Sie, the formal you that I mentioned earlier. So you want to learn some basic things like that. But once you have that, just the basics, you can start doing something to practice called circumlocution. Okay, so this is when you have one thing that you're trying to describe, but you have to use simple words to describe it. So like there are some games that do this kind of thing in English, like the game Taboo, where you have to describe something, but you're not allowed to say certain words, or Poetry for Neanderthals, where you have to describe something, but you have to do it using only single syllable words. So you can say things like, if you're trying to describe, I don't know, an animal, like maybe you know how to say Tier, animal, but you don't know how to say like Katze, cat, but you can say dog. So you can say something like, oh, ein Tier im Haus, aber kein Hund. And then people might be able to guess like, oh, eine Katze. I remember when I was in Switzerland, I didn't know how to say slugs. And I was like, oh, I know how to say snail. Okay, so I would say, oh, das ist eine Schnecke, a snail, aber ohne Haus, without the house on it. And people knew what I was talking about. So you can get to those different meanings if you try and if you know a little bit. So, of course, the degree to which you'll be able to do some circumlocution practice, like describing in a circle around a word, that's going to vary depending on your level of skill with the language, of course, but keep trying, keep learning the language and studying it. And eventually, if you can do that kind of thing and be used to it before you go, then when you are there, it won't be such a difficult task and you won't be so put on the spot. So I hope that you have a better idea of what you need to study before you go abroad. And that's it. Also, vielen Dank und bis zum nächsten Mal.